The Utah Jazz continue their winning ways on the road. 9 straight, in fact, for the Jazz on the road. And Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic, Rudy Gobert, the guys you'd expect, led the way. We're talking about it on POSTCAST. David Locke along with Ron Boone after every Jazz game live for you on YouTube, Facebook, and the Twitter. Glad to have you aboard. And Ron, the Utah Jazz just do what they've been doing. They win on the road. This one really commanding fashion. They took control of the game early in the third quarter and never relented.
I think all season long, and I think you pointed this out, how strong the Jazz are in the second half of basketball games, in particular the fourth quarter. I mean, it's like they seem to figure things out, or they change their style just a little bit, or I really think that they start to take advantage of other situations out there on the floor. And Bojan comes on strong here in the second half after having kind of a mediocre first half. I think he only had 3 points there at the first part of the ball game. At the first half, he only had 3 points.
Well, I mean, the same thing from Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell. They opened the night 2 for 7 in the first quarter. They go 6 of 10 in the third. Excuse me, in the second. And by the end of 3 quarters, Mike Conley's got 18.7 rebounds and 6 assists. So they seem to read it the same way. It's interesting. Mike Conley in the postgame interview with Holly Rowe and Thurl Bailey said that Quinn Snyder told him to run more. They didn't have a fast break point all game, but evidently they were just getting into things earlier, and that made a difference.
Yeah, it really makes a difference. That I don't understand. I mean, sometimes you can just accidentally get a fast break points, but tonight they just continue to play a half-court game. Maybe that was part of the game plan because they knew that the Pelicans want to run. They're a very good running basketball team, but not a very good half-court team. So if you shoot a good percentage and keep them in half court, then it's to your advantage. But to not get any fast break points, that doesn't happen very often.
No, it does not. The Jazz, the interesting one to me, Ron, was when you prepare this game, you're coming in and you see that Herb Jones is he's starting because he's a defensive player, 6'9", 23-year-old rookie out of Alabama, super good defensive player. He's got a record for most consecutive block shots and steals for a rookie for New Orleans. I mean, he's really made a name for himself defensively. He's kind of this year's Maurice Thibault. And you looked it up, and Donovan was 3 of 14 in 2 games against him when he was the primary defender in the first 2 games. And then all of a sudden you kind of wonder, so what's going on with that? And we know how much film Donovan watches. We're not on the road. This is one of those killer things where, like, if we were on the road, you just would wait until you'd wait outside the locker room, catch Donovan on the walk to the bus, and say, "Hey, by the way, did you watch film?" And he'd tell you the story. You wait till practice tomorrow. I mean, this is a classic example where, unfortunately, we don't have that information. But the fact is, Donovan goes 11 of 19, 29 points. He goes 7 of 10 when guarded by Jones. I really feel like what we saw was a veteran studying film of a youngster, realizing what he does to him, and then taking advantage of it.
He's 6'7", and usually 6 guys with quickness and good feet, they can bother things like that. But as you mentioned, you figure things out. He was able to do it, and just obviously Donovan had a lot of respect for this young kid if he went to that length of trying to make sure that he had a good night against him. But there's one thing for a player to just go out and play the game and don't study it and don't put the time in and the work in order to be better. And obviously Donovan, who's 6'3",
maybe 6'1",
really taking advantage of a 6'7" player.
Brandon Ingram goes 3 of 18 tonight. He does have 7 assists. He's coming off an ankle sprain, so he might not have been quite right, obviously. But he only took 1 shot in the rim against the Jazz when Rudy Gobert was on the floor the last time. Like, you look at his shot plot in the middle of the paint, it's just empty. There was one little blue mark in there. He did not attack. He tried it for a little while. He got blocked. He went back. He's clearly, as great as he's been against the Jazz sometimes in the past, for whatever reason right now, in most recent years, he is not moving. He is not attacking Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, he is not what we're used to seeing. And I'm wondering, though, if how bad that ankle was, because it's taken quite a bit of time in order for it to heal to the point where he can be very effective out there on the floor. At his size and his height, he should be a DeRozan, especially in the mid-range, because he can shoot over any defender. He has that little fade shot that, away from the defender, and it's just hard to defend it. And I don't think he takes advantage of that enough.
Jazz shot the 3 well tonight. They went 19 of 39, 49%. Pelicans 12 of 46. One aspect of the Pelicans 12 of 46 is they have no off the bounce 3-point shooters that shoot above 30%. and the Jazz were perfectly aware of it. You could see it in their game plan, the way they defended the three. The Pelicans actually hit one off the bounce three. It was Ingram's with about 30 seconds left. They went 1 for 9 tonight. It's interesting to have a roster that, like, obviously what they're planning on Zion being inside, kicking out to everyone, because without that, they just don't have guys that can create shots.
Yeah, but they're playing better. And will they ever develop something like that? Graham is probably the one right now that you have a lot of confidence in shooting off the bounce threes or off the bounce shots, period. But I was impressed with their record, and I hadn't watched them play for quite some time. But you had to be impressed with winning 10 of the last 17 ball games.
They came in and were playing much better, 16th overall in that stretch. Hayden has a comment. It's only January. We're heavily dependent on Rudy Gay guarding his yard, and he's really having a tough time with that right now. Teams are going after him, not just at the 5. The Spurs went at him completely. You know, it is, I think the opening comments January, you need him to be good in April and May, but he's got to get in either better shape or, you know, maybe at 35, 36, he's not able to move that well.
I don't know if maybe we need to watch this a little bit longer, but I don't know if it's the fact that his age. I just think he's not reading the defense or not biting in. Biting in is probably wrong, but not recognizing and not responding to the defense that the Jazz want to do out there on the floor. I think when they have shoot around, he's a little bit better. Without shoot around today, they didn't have a shoot around this morning. Or did they?
Nope.
No, they didn't. And so I think he's struggling with it because he did make some mistakes out there and put the Jazz in a tough situation to the point where they either get an offensive rebound or they were able to get 2 points.
Jared says New Orleans announcers called Mitchell unguardable tonight. Some of those step backs are just incredible. I love this comment because there's actually a moment in the game as a broadcaster. Every now and then when something happens, you want to jump on it. You can't. I watched one of his threes. It actually came up short. Ron, can you explain to me as a player this crossover step back 3 and then to have enough strength to elevate and shoot the ball 24 feet? Like, how, like, what is it that those guys, like, what is that? And how strong are these guys to shoot that? 1, get it there, and 2, have enough touch to make it.
Well, it's just practice, and obviously we watch him warm up, we watch him shoot those kind of shots. But the big thing here is if you watch a guy, and Donovan's, when he's driving to the basket, he's setting up that step back because he's driving very strong to the basket. He's very quick going to the hole, and now you get a point where you're one-on-one and you start to put the ball on the floor as though you're going to go to the basket very strong. That defender has to react. Now you step back. Now, as far as getting the ball there, you've noticed that whenever a guy steps back, he's not in a hurry to shoot it because he has to get on balance. Sometimes you have to square the shoulders, and Donovan gets up high enough, and the ball has a very high release. You know, he has a very high, soft release there, and so it's awfully difficult to block. But he sets it up off the dribble drive because he's going to the basket very strong, and the defender has to react.
From the other night, but do refs try to make up for obvious missed calls, i.e. the block through the net on JC against the Wolves and the backcourt violation this game? So I'm going to give you the answer that the NBA will tell you the answer to this question is. What the NBA will tell you is that those officials are judged on every single call. And at the end of every night, they get a report call of every single call. So if they miss the JC dunk, which they did, they'll get a negative on that. If they try to make up for it with another bad call, they'll get another negative. And that's how they get playoff performances, and that's how they get placements, and that's how they get games, and that's how they get paid, so that there should not be makeup calls in the course of a game because it will impact their grading, the grading system, and how hard they're graded. So that is the answer the NBA would give on why there's no makeup calls.
Yeah, you hope like hell officials don't do that. I mean, I would imagine back in the day when officials really would talk back to players. I played against some officials that would get in a player's face and challenge him after being challenged by a player or something like that. But they've cleaned all of that up now, and I think the grade system, as you just mentioned, has really made this officials much better for the most part. Yeah.
In the old days, I think this stuff existed.
Yeah.
In today's day, when that many, if they find some sort of vendetta type thing or some sort of makeup calls,
or if they hear anything like that, if they hear anything like that, they'll call an official in and they'll probably have a conversation with them or something like that. And we don't know
We
over
don't
here.
we don't know,
But
but
there's fine systems for officials there as well. They're just not publicized. So
right, and I follow the official assignments very closely. You'll see officials like suddenly not work for a week. Now maybe they get a week off, or maybe they right, like you just don't know, like because the NBA doesn't talk about it. But so it's an interesting aspect. All right, Jazz win it tonight over the Pelicans. It is their 9th straight road win. We'll be back at it late. Denver, KSL Radio, as well as 97.5, as well as ESPN, as well as Bowler, Thurl, and Holly. Have a great